Okay, so have you ever just stood there staring at a passing Adelaide Metro bus and found yourself wondering why it has this complete jumble of random letters and numbers plastered on the front? I mean, to the untrained eye, it looks like absolute chaos, right? Just a random string of characters. But today, we're going to decode it. Because as it turns out, those letters and numbers aren't random at all. They're actually part of this incredibly logical, geographic, and behavioral code.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at our central mystery for this explainer. What on earth does 506x actually mean? Well, I promise you, by the time we finish up here today, you're not just going to see a soup of alphanumeric characters anymore. You are going to be able to instantly read this like a genuine transit hacker. You'll know exactly where that bus came from, where it's heading, and precisely how it's going to behave on the road.
So here's our decoder blueprint for dismantling this system today. We'll start with the 3-digit geography, then we'll look at prefix behaviors, suffix stops, mastering those major corridors, and finally, we'll wrap up with the free loops and cheat codes. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Part 1, the 3-digit geography.
So, let's look at the very first part of our cipher. The 100 series digits on a bus tell you exactly which geographic sector of the city that bus primarily services. It literally chunks the entire city map into numbers. It's brilliant. For example, a 100 series, that's an east-west cross-suburban route connecting places like Arndale and Glen Osmond. The 200s are going to drive your main north-south corridors like Main North Road. 300s are your crosstown connectors. These are suburban loops that completely bypass the CBD. If you're heading outer north, out to Elizabeth or Salisbury, you are looking for the 400s. The 500s, they take you outer northeast towards Tea Tree Plaza, and that includes the famous O-Bahn. Then you've got the 600s and 700s covering the outer south regions like Marion and Narlinga. The 800s tackle the geography up in the Adelaide Hills like Mount Barker. And finally, the 900s are reserved for special events, think shuttling thousands of fans to the Adelaide Oval. So just from that very first digit, you already know exactly which slice of the city you're looking at.
Moving right along to Part 2, prefixes and how buses behave.
Prefixes are those letters that pop up right before the numbers, and they're there to signify specialized behaviors. Let's say you see a letter like G, H, J, M, or W leading the charge. That tells you that you are looking at a through-city go-zone route. Basically, this means the bus cuts directly through the CBD, connecting one side of Adelaide to the completely opposite side, meaning you never even have to change buses. And honestly, here is the really clever part. The letters actually give you a massive hint about the main road they travel on. A G bus handles Goodwood or Grange Road. H takes Henley Beach Road or the Parade. J is your Jetwas, which explicitly routes past the Adelaide Airport. M takes McGill or Marion Road, and W handles Winston Avenue. It's incredibly intuitive once you actually see the pattern.
Now, why if you see a T or an N at the front? Well, these are functional prefixes, and they tell you about the service level. A T stands for Transit Link. This is a premium, much faster service that only coordinates and stops at major designated interchanges. It totally skips the little stops. An N, on the other hand, stands for After Midnight. These are dedicated, late-night weekend services designed specifically to give people a safe, reliable ride home after a night out.
All right, Section 3, suffixes or stopping patterns.
Suffixes are the letters tagged at the very end of the route number, and they dictate exactly how that bus picks up or drops off passengers. The absolute biggest one you'll want to look out for, especially when you're in a hurry, is the X. Seeing an X at the end of a bus number means you are in for a seriously fast ride. It stands for Express, meaning the bus is going to run completely express, bypassing minor stops for a major portion of its route just to save you time.
Now, what's really interesting about this next one is the F suffix. It stands for limited stops or fast, and it operates on this highly specific, absolutely brilliant Adelaide rule. Check this out. If an F bus is heading inbound toward the city, it will drop off passengers, sure, but after a certain point, it totally refuses to pick up anyone new. Heading outbound, it'll pick up anyone, but it won't let anyone off until it hits its designated outer zone. Why would they do that? Well, this clever rule actually prevents inner suburb commuters who are just making short little trips from clogging up the seats on long-distance buses.
You might also spot a C tagged on the end, which stands for City Terminus. This just simply means the bus is running a shortened version of its normal run and will terminate right there in the CBD instead of crossing all the way to the other side of the city. You'll also occasionally see letters like A, B, S, M, or L. Don't let those throw you off. They just indicate really minor geographic deviations, like maybe a slight detour to service a school zone during school hours. So the crucial point is, we can now solve our mystery. Remember that 506X from the very beginning of the explainer? Well, look at how easily we can decode this thing now. The 500 tells us it's servicing the northeast sector, probably along the Oban. And the X at the end tells us it's an express. So you now instantly know this is a fast, major stop skipping route racketing its way toward Tea Tree Plaza. No way you could have known that before, right? You've completely cracked the code.
Let's look at Section 4, Mastering Major Corridors. Now that we actually have this kind of transit superpower, let's apply it to some Adelaide's absolute heavyweights. First up, we've got the Oban heavyweights. Take the M44. This is one of the longest and busiest cross-city routes in all of Adelaide, connecting Golden Grove all the way down to Marion. And notice that M prefix? Yup, it cuts right through the city. Then we have the J1 and J2. These are the jet buses originating way out in the deep north and northeast in places like Elizabeth or Greenwith, cutting straight through the city and going directly to the airport. They connect the furthest reaches of the city completely flawlessly.
And honestly, we have to talk about the Oban itself for a second because it is just incredibly cool. The Oban busway is this dedicated guided concrete track. Specially modified buses literally lock their steering into this track and accelerate up to 100 kilometers per hour. It completely bypasses all standard road traffic. I mean, it is an intense, high-speed transit corridor and easily the highest patronage bus corridor in the entire city. It's wild.
Then we have the massive north and south trunk lines. These basically act like a giant funnel, pulling huge populations of students and commuters directly into the CBD. Up in the north, you have the 200s, like the 228, driving straight down the gut of Main North Road, and the 224 pulling university students down from Mawson Lakes and Southsbury. Over on the south side, you have the 721 bringing people all the way up from the deep south in Noarlunga. And connecting them is the mighty G10. That's a massive through-city goes-on that starts up north in Blair Athol, rolls right through the CBD and finishes way down south at Marion.
And this brilliantly illustrates the big exception to the rule, Route 100. Because while most buses are actively trying to funnel you directly into the city center, the 100 forms this massive crescent moon shape around the western and southern suburbs. It's the ultimate cross-suburban lifeline for commuters who just need to skirt around the edges of the city, totally avoiding that CBD traffic nightmare entirely.
We also definitely have to highlight the Hills Express, specifically the T840. Because the Adelaide Hills are geographically isolated by a mountain range, this 800 series route is absolutely vital. And with that T prefix, we instantly know it's a premium transit link. It jumps right onto the Southeastern Freeway and just rockets down the mountain corridor to drop Hills residents from places like Mount Barker directly into the CBD.
Finally, Section 5, Free Loops and Cheat Codes.
If you're moving around the city center itself, there are some ultimate commuter hacks you really need to know. For instance, if you're navigating the Adelaide CBD or North Adelaide, you want the 98 or 99 loops simply because they are completely free. They are heavily used by tourists, city workers, and students. But here is the brilliant directional hack you must remember to save yourself a massive headache. The letter at the end tells you which way the loop spins. A stands for anti-clockwise, and C stands for clockwise. It's so simple, but it saves you from accidentally taking the really long way around the city square.
So let's do a rapid-fire cheat sheet to solidify your newly acquired transit matrix knowledge. Heading northeast, look for the 500s, or an Oban route like the M44 or J1. Heading deep south, jump on a 720 series or the G10. Going straight north, find a 220 series. And if you just want to skirt around the edge of the city without getting bogged down in the CBD, Route 100 is your best friend for sure.
You know, it really is quite amazing just how much information is packed into a few simple letters and numbers when a city actually takes the time to design a logical matrix like this. It's like a giant puzzle that perfectly clicks together. So, I want to leave you with this final thought today. Next time you're out and about, maybe waiting for a ride, take a look at the bus stops in your own hometown. Is there a hidden code waiting to be cracked, or is it just random chaos? How does your city's transit system stack up against Adelaide's logical matrix? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy navigating.